Hi guys, my name is Fee and welcome to my book nook. So in today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about my favorite books from 2024. Get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee, and let's get started. So there's no better way to start off the year than with a good book, so I hope you guys find something that you like. Last year I read a total of 50 books, so the first category I'm starting off with is romance. So this is Love Theoretically by Hazelwood. I'm sure everybody's heard of Hazelwood. I'll be so honest with you. I was not a big Hazelwood girl, but this book converted me and I am now an Hazelwood stan. Basically, the premise of the book is we follow this girl named Elsie. She is an adjunct professor. She's a theoretical physicist and she really just wants to do research, right? But she's a professor, so that means she has to lecture and she doesn't really like teaching and the salary is really bad. So to make ends meet, she has this kind of like a side gig where she's basically a fake girlfriend for hire. She generally has this rule where she doesn't like go to the same client twice, but there's this one client who's kind of like her favorite and she has been like his fake girlfriend for multiple family occasions. Elsie is up for a new job at MIT where it's like her dream job. Basically, her favorite client's brother is standing in the way of her getting this job because he knows her as his brother's girlfriend, right? So he doesn't know that, it's a fake relationship and things just kind of go really wrong. There's like so much of tension between the two of them. This book explores such important themes, especially like with communication between the main couple, right? And I thought the way it was handled was so good. Elsie is a people pleaser and that is just so relatable, like the way her character is. Hazelwood books, she just writes such quirky, lovable characters and her books are so funny and it's just such a good time, so I would just highly recommend this. If you're gonna take away any books from this video, please let it be an Jimenez book. When I tell you I fell in love with her books, they're just so good. I read the Part of Your World series. I didn't read the first book, I read the second and third. They basically interconnected standalones. The characters kind of overlap, but it's nothing major. I read Yours Truly and this book was just so good. Yours Truly follows this Dr. Brianna and she's kind of going through a lot right now. She's got a divorce going on, her brother is in need of a kidney transplant and she's up for this new promotion, and then this new doctor Jacob arrives and kind of threatens her promotion. But meanwhile Jacob is just this really amazing character and he really has no intention of getting this promotion. He has social anxiety. I really appreciated how she handled it. The way social anxiety was depicted in this book, it's done so well. Basically, there's this like miscommunication between Brianna and Jacob. He has his own things going on. He writes her a letter like explaining his side of things, and the letters in this book are just so beautiful because they end up having this back and forth letters between them and that's how they like start their friendship. Due to circumstances I can't say because it's a spoiler, they end up in this fake relationship and then things kind of go from there. We all know how the fake dating trope goes. My only complaint about this book was I didn't like the ending. There was a trope that was used that I'm not a fan of it, but other than that, this was just such a good book. It was just, everything was done so well and it was just such a good time. In the next Jimenez book I read, this was the third book in the Part of Your World series, that is Just for the Summer. Guys, this book, I have never related to a character more than I related to Emma in this book. It's like Jimenez went in my brain and she wrote this book for me. I just related to her so much. So the premise of this book is there's these two characters, Justin and Emma, and they kind of believe they're cursed, right? Where when they date someone and they break up, that person will meet like the love of their life, right? So it's kind of like they are the one before the one. So they both, through this Reddit thread, they both find out that they both have the same curse, like, so coincidental. And they decide, okay, why don't we date each other and then maybe we'll cancel out each other's curse, right? End up starting to date and it's like so cute and everything is so nice. But Emma has a lot of baggage. She has like a toxic relationship with her mother, and she has a lot of stuff to deal with, and it's just not the right time because Justin has he's like dealing with this debacle of his siblings where he's like gonna take a guardianship of them, so it's not really the right time for them, and it kind of follows that storyline. This book does acts of service so well. Like, it's really not about the big romantic gestures, it's about the smaller things that you don't always notice, but you know, over time, that's really what matters. And I just thought it was so beautifully done. And Abby Jimenez's writing is just, I read these books, I binge read them in like 2 days, and they were just so good. Like, you just really wanted more, and I absolutely love them, highly recommend them. They were just the best romance books I think I read the whole of last year. So then the next category of books is my favorite category of books. We are onto our fantasies. So the first fantasy I'm going to recommend you guys is One Dark Window. This is the first book in the Shepherd King duology. The magic system in this book is so unique. Oh, I found it unique compared to all the other fantasy books. It's set in this kingdom of Blunder, and there's 2 ways you can use magic in this kingdom. So one way is kind of the illegal wrong way where you kind of get killed for this, where kids get this fever, and if they get this fever they kind of get magic powers, right? And this isn't allowed. The correct way to use magic is through the Providence cards. So there's 12 Providence cards, and I can't really go too much into it, but basically there's like some cards there's 12 of them, some there's 11, you know, the rarity is different, and like one card will make you beautiful, and one card you can control people's minds and that kind of thing, but the cards come with a basically adverse effect. So if you use it too much, then there's consequences. And I thought that was really nice, you know, that magic has limits and it's not like this unlimited thing. There's boundaries to it. So the story follows Elspeth, who had the fever as a child, but her whole family thinks that she didn't get any powers from it because she's basically lived a relatively normal life. She has kept a secret where she basically has a monster living in her head, and you don't really know whether he's evil or not, or what his real intentions are, and it was just, that was so cool. To cure this kingdom of this curse it's under, you have to collect a full set of the Providence cards. So the king is trying to do that, and then for reasons I can't say without spoiling it, Elspeth and this like group of people are trying to collect the cards first in order to break the curse. So don't go into it thinking that romance is a like substantial part of the plot. It's really just a subplot. The romance is good, like it was really nice, but it's very much on the backseat of things. But you know, with fantasy sometimes I think that's better because the stakes are always so high and you end up really yearning for more of those scenes between the characters. I do think though the relationships in general, like between the characters and their siblings and their friends and that kind of thing, was a little bit surface level because you were really focused on the plot, which it's okay. I mean, it didn't really take away anything from it, but that's the only thing that, you know, I think you needed more. The second book was also really good. I just enjoyed the first one more because the second one focuses on different characters and I just like these characters a little bit more. But overall it was really good. The gothic eerie vibes are really nice. Fantasy books don't usually go as dark as this did, especially when it comes to the female character and how they handled, and I thought that was really refreshing in this book. The next book that I read was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia for Fairies, and this book is such a wholesome book. It's really just a cozy, low stakes historical fantasy. This book is for the fantasy girls. If you grew up loving fantasy, this is just such a wholesome kind of book. It follows the scholar. Her name is Emily Wilde, and she's basically a professor at Cambridge, and she studies fairies. Like, it's a whole, in this world, it's an entire field of study, and so she studies fairies, right? So she goes to this village where she's hoping to study this specific kind of fairies so that she can write this thesis about it. Emily is a little bit of a quirky character, and she doesn't really have good social skills. Her entire focus, you know, is just her work. The villagers don't really take to her, which makes it really difficult for her. And then comes her academic rival, Wendell, who is just this charming person, and they have such good banter. It's so witty. He comes in and kind of like helps her out with her research and that kind of thing, and she has her suspicions about him, and the plot basically goes from there. I did think the last bit of the book, like the pacing was a little bit weird, especially where the last part of the book ended up going. I like the only thing. And the second book was just as good. I can't really say much, but it's also very similar vibes to this. Next up, we have the Cru Prints. I know I am very late to be reading this. I read the whole trilogy and it was so good. I really do wish I read it when I was a bit younger. I read this like 6 months ago and I still think about it till now. It was just so good. And the female main character, Jude, I think Jude is now like one of my favorite characters. She's great, you know. So this book follows Jude, and she was really small. Her sisters and her were taken to Fairy, which is where all the fairies and creatures and that kind of thing are, and it's full of magic and that kind of thing. But this book doesn't follow your typical, there's gonna be a war and there's good and evil. So when Jude moved here, right, she is obviously human and she feels kind of inadequate. So her whole thing is that she really wants to prove herself and she wants to fit in and find her place in the court, right? So she's very power hungry and ambitious, and you're basically following her struggle to get what she wants. And Jude and Carden are just everything. The tension between them, but it's the romance is very light in this book. It's really not a main thing, and it's just such a good trilogy. If you like political intrigue, this does have a lot of that. The next book that I really enjoyed was The Very Secret Society for Irregular Witches. This ended up really surprising me. It's cozy, low stakes kind of fantasy as well. It follows this girl Mika, who is a witch, and in their world witches have this curse on them where they are always orphans, and she grows up very lonely. And there's another rule where witches can't like big groups of people because the magic attracts and it's kind of dangerous, right? She is kind of like, she has this personality on the internet where she's a witch, right? So people think it's fake, but she's actually a witch. And one day someone messages her and is like, I don't think you're fake, I think you're actually a witch, and I need your help to teach these 3 young witches, you know, how to control their magic. And she's like, what do you mean 3 young witches? You know, you can't be in groups anywhere. You know, she's like, I can't really say that I'm a witch because you're not allowed, people are not allowed to know this, it's not safe for them. But then curiosity kind of gets the best of her and she ends up going to help them. It's this really warm atmosphere and just such a good time. You know, you see her really get this family that she's always wanted, and I thought it was just such a good book. So the last fantasy that I'm going to recommend is One for My Enemy by Olivie. So this is the first book I've read by her, and can we just appreciate the art in this book is just so amazing, and it's so unique the way it was written and set up. Romeo and Juliet inspired. One for My Enemy is this, it's an adult fantasy, right? It's an urban fantasy, and it follows these 2 witch families that are rivals, the Antonovas and the Fedorovs. The families kind of deal in like black market kind of things. The writing in this book is so good. So the families kind of have this truce and something happens where kind of go wrong. The romance in this book is so beautiful, and it's just at the ending I was a bit confused. Like I had a lot of questions, like some things were left a bit unanswered, but I thought it was just a really well done book. And the last category of books is thrillers. I read like 10 thrillers last year, and this was the only one that really stood out to me, and that is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Follows this girl named Jules, and I went into this book not really knowing much about it. Jules has just been cheated on, doesn't really have any family, so she's really on her own and she's really desperate for money. She gets this job to apartment sit in this really like beautiful building, and it's kind of filled with like these really rich famous people, and this building is like shrouded in mystery, and it's just, you know, it's like a dream come true for her to get to stay there. And then she befriends one of the other apartment sitters, Ingrid, and Ingrid is kind of like, you know, she feels like something's not right in the building and kind of places doubt in Jules' mind, and then Ingrid goes missing. So then Jules is trying to look for her, find out what happened, did she die, you know, what's going on. And the ending of this book, like, you know, generally in a book, right, even if a plot twist is unexpected, you still kind of had an inkling like this is the direction that the plot line's gonna go. But with this one, it was just like, I was like, wow, you know, I did not see it going this way. Just such a great book. So that's it for today's video. Those are all the books that they were either a 4-star or a 5-star read for me in terms of how enjoyable they were to me, and I just urge you to please go and read them. They were just so good. If you've read any of them and agree with anything I said, please comment down below, and comment down below what were your favorite books of 2024. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys soon.